Good morning, everyone. My name is Hiba Musa. I'm an admission counselor for Penn State. I'm also a Penn State graduate. So I graduated from Penn State in 2014 with my psychology degree. So it is an honor for me to introduce our keynote speaker because I worked with him when he was a student at the Lehigh Valley campus. So Previn is a Penn State alum who graduated in 2019 with a degree in IST and a minor in security risk analysis. During his time at Penn State, Previn was involved in various organizations such as Student Government and Thon, and was an active leader on campus. Now he works at IBM as a senior consultant, leading teams for state government projects related to healthcare and COVID relief programs. It is my honor to introduce Previn Joseph, our keynote speaker.
Thanks, Hiba. Like she said, I used to be a student here, and I worked on campus. And it's funny because I did a lot of marketing on campus, and I used to hang up flyers like in the bathroom stalls. And to be now here, standing in front of you as a student, kind of a wild feeling. Or not a student, now as a guest speaker is kind of a wild feeling. So a little bit about me. I grew up in the area for the most part. You'll hear a little bit of what's unique about my experience in a bit. But, I'm from the Allentown, Emmaus kind of area, and what else? Oh, I'm Indian, first generation, so my parents came here from India, and I was the first to go to college for my family. So during that time, and, transitioning and figuring out life, there was one thing I constantly was trying to do, and that was I was constantly trying to fit into the different areas, whether it's a new school, a new environment, and getting to this point in life, I've learned a lesson that I hope to share with you all. So the topic that I want to talk to you today is called fitting in versus finding your fit. So let's get into it. My early life, like I said, I started in the area. I went to a Catholic school, actually, not too far from here. And right off the bat, one thing that was unique was I was the only Indian kid in my class. Now, there were other Indians in school and people of color, but I was the only Indian. So as a result, that came with its kind of questions or feeling different, like, oh, wow, I jumped a little too ahead. Before we get into that, I'd like to do an exercise with you, which is, if you wouldn't mind, if you feel comfortable enough, close your eyes. And I want you to think about times where you were, maybe running around at recess. It could be getting ice cream with your friends, going for a bike ride, whatever it is. Think about those moments. Now, in between any of that, do you ever remember feeling different? It could have been the fact that you had glasses. Could have been the fact of what you were wearing, the way you styled your hair. Maybe the fact that your toys were maybe older than some of your friends. I know I felt different. And so, as much as I'd like to walk around and ask you all those moments, I'm going to share some of those moments where I felt different. And again, like I was kind of jumping ahead, the topic of today's talk is finding your fit versus fitting in. So like I was saying, I was the only Indian kid in my class, and I would get questions such as, what language do you speak? Or what food do you eat? Or what kind of clothes do you wear? And when my friends asked me these questions, they were never because they were trying to be mean or anything. It was out of genuine curiosity. At least that's what I thought. But that made me feel different, right? Like, again, everyone else in my class was an Indian, so I knew I was different. And as I mentioned, I went to a Catholic school, and the other piece of it was I was Christian, but I wasn't Catholic. And so as a result of it, I would even wonder, oh, I didn't realize there was even a difference. Being that young. But, life went on, and I had fun. I made good friends. And in third grade, my parents thought it'd be a great idea for me to go to India, to live with my grandparents, to get to know them, get to know my culture. And so I transitioned there. So, I went to school in India. That actually was my school. And pretty quickly, I realized, wow, everyone in my class is Indian now. I'm no longer the only Indian kid in class. I had to dig to find this picture, but there's me in my class. So again, I was the I was in a class full of Indians. And yet, I still felt different. I realized that there were more languages than I thought, for one thing. The whole religion thing, for instance, like, again, I was Christian, friends were Catholic, but now I was around Hindus and Muslims and Buddhists, just people of so many different beliefs, so many different upbringings. And I thought I was wildly amazed by the differences of that. And it's also funny because I remember this one moment where I was slightly lighter color, and someone was like, "Previn, you're white." I was like, this is the first time in my life someone's called me white. Like, whoa. So, again, I felt different even there. But life was good. I eventually found my place, and I formed my identity. I became known to be a singer and a musician, and life was amazing. I'd be performing on stage at school events, and life was good. But then, fast forward, it was a few years after I was there, and it was time for me to come back. And so I get back here, and I went to high school there. And I'll tell you one thing. I felt lost. When I got here, I just didn't understand a thing. Like, I didn't understand cultural references. People make jokes from TV shows or movies, and I didn't understand any of it. And one of the worst moments I still remember is I was walking through the halls of class, or between classes, and I zoned out, and so I started daydreaming. I started daydreaming about my time in India and all my friends and, singing on stage and all that, and all those good memories. And when I snapped out of it, I remember thinking to myself, where am I? Why am I here? Like, I felt completely out of place, completely lost, having no idea who I even was as I was walking through those halls. And, struggled through it, but eventually, started making friends and started getting involved in different things. And I eventually found a new identity. I became known to be a tech guy. Of course, right? Brown kid becoming techie. But no, I was passionate about it. Like, I truly was passionate about it. And so that became my identity. And I also became known for photoshopping and video editing. Funny story, like, I used to Photoshop my teachers, for instance, and make memes out of them. And it wasn't like I was doing it behind their back. I would hand it to them, and they would hang it in their room. They loved it. So that became part of my identity. But, as I'm finally feeling comfortable, as I'm finally getting into my groove, the whole idea of college now pops up, and I'm like, great. Like, here we go again. I finally find my place, and now I got to figure out college. Now, with college, the one thing I remember happening to me is, I don't know, some of my friends, like, they knew where they wanted to go. They'd be like, oh, my dad went here, so I want to apply there. I've wanted to go here since I was 2. I was like, man, I was trying to figure out if I wanted chocolate milk or regular milk when I was, like, again, I just felt so out of place even with that. And so, eventually I, started looking into things. And as I was looking at programs, I knew, again, because of the tech identity, I was like, all right, maybe I'll go into something computers related. And my parents were supportive and, love them. But the problem was they didn't really have an opinion, and so the entire decision felt like it was on my shoulders. It was like, you can pick your major, you can pick wherever you want to go, but it's your decision, and that just put a lot of pressure on me. I was like, whoa, this is a life-changing thing that I got to figure out. And so I weighed in different things, again, degree program, costs, and, location too. And luckily, this was a good fit for me, and so I decided to come here. I felt good, but I knew one thing. Let's skip that. I knew one thing. I knew that I wanted things to be different this time. I didn't want to feel the same way when I walked through those halls in high school in ninth grade, and I wanted things to be different. And whether I knew there was partially me trying, but there was also a few moments that made that happen. The first was an assignment. And I don't know, counselors, if you have the power, but maybe encourage your students to do this assignment. Sorry, guys, don't hate me for giving you homework here. But it was write a letter to the incoming ninth grade class with advice on how to navigate high school. And so in my English class, I did that exercise. I was like, oh, you guys should go to the football games or pep rallies, all that. And I handed it in. At the end of class, the teacher handed that back to me. Well, back to everyone, actually. And she said, now go follow that advice. And I thought that was powerful. I was like, whoa, that's so true. I started, finally, fitting in and whatever when I got involved and I started going to events. And so I was like, okay, cool. The next piece was a book. Now, let me tell you something. This book isn't something life-changing or anything. It's not. But the book is called Ender's Game. And I don't know, like you, I was forced to read it for summer reading. But there was a quote in that book that I really liked, and it was, perhaps it is impossible to wear an identity without becoming what you pretend to be. And when I read that, I thought to myself, well, all right, I'm a shy kid who, didn't know what I wanted to do and whatever. But I thought, just maybe, if I pretend to be confident, pretend to be outgoing, maybe I'll eventually get there. I mean, that was my thinking back then. And so that's what I thought I'd do. And then the last piece actually came here when it was like one of my first days on campus. And we had a guest speaker. His name was John Vroman. And he had a speech called Living Life in the Front Row. And I highly recommend you guys look that speech up because it's on YouTube and everything. And just to give you a little snippet of it, if you go to a concert, where do you want to be in that concert? You want to be in the front row, jamming out with the person singing, jamming out with the person performing. So why not take on life like that? Like, why not truly experience life from the front row? And I thought that was powerful. You know what's ironic? I was digging through some archives. There's me sitting in the back row during this talk. So that's where I was. But after hearing all those things and having all those moments, I was like, all right, I am going to figure out something and actually change it. So again, in high school, I preferred to stay hidden. I preferred to stay in the back. I hated speaking in front of people. High school me would not believe I'm standing here right now. I'd be terrified. In college, I wanted to be known. I wanted to be heard. Again, I felt lost. I felt like I didn't have a voice, especially when I was walking through the halls in 9th grade. And so I knew I wanted things to be different. And so I began. I started getting involved. I started getting involved in student government, in Thon. I became an active leader on campus. I remember one time Dr. Richardson was like, Previn, I think I see you here more than anyone else. And that was the reality of it. I wanted to be involved, and I just started taking lead. I told you, I got a job in marketing. I used to design flyers and stuff. So I brought back that Photoshop and video editing element. And so that part of my identity came back. The next piece of it was, I told you guys I was a musician back in India. And so I would walk around the hallways with my ukulele, jamming out. Sometimes, we'd get about 10 people sitting around. We'd all be singing. And I performed at coffee house events here, and things were good. I was finally bringing that musician side back. Well, my last year at Penn State, I got to perform at the Bryce Jordan Center in front of 10,000 people. And that was just a life-changing moment. I brought that part of my identity back. And then finally, I graduated with a degree in information sciences technology and a minor in security risk analysis. That landed me a job at tech giant IBM. And so I brought back all those elements of who I was and all those moments of figuring out who I was over the years. So what did I learn in that process? Well, I learned that wherever I went, I was always going to feel different, possibly going to feel out of place. And that was partially because maybe I was looking for it. I was looking for those differences. I'd be like, well, this person doesn't look like me, or this person doesn't believe the same things or do the same things that I do. And I always found those differences. And I, even in an environment like in India, when everyone in my class was Indian, I still felt different. And I often think that's because of the way we try to tackle fitting in. And I'll show you a demonstration on what I mean by that. Because with fitting in, oftentimes, let's say, I have a friend and he's wearing an amazing looking suit. And, I want to wear that suit, right? And so I ask him if I can borrow that suit. Now, for context, my friend is over 6 feet tall, and I clearly am not. This is what that looks like. I mean, ignore the color. I know that's already something else. but this is how it fits on me, right? It doesn't fit. And that's sometimes how we tackle fitting in. Sometimes we tackle fitting in as just being able to throw on something. I remember in high school, there was this one friend of mine, I think he had a pair of Jordans for every outfit. And I was like, man, I can't even afford like one at the time. And so what I realized is I was, again, fitting in, trying to fit in can feel like throwing on that oversized suit. It's not going to fit. What's going to feel the best is when you can get something maybe tailor-fitted where it's measured exactly to you if you have the chance, or at least, picking the right size off the rack. But that's what's going to fit in the best. Let me throw this back on. But you will look and feel the best when you figure out exactly who you are. And that's what was happening, because in those moments, again, it wasn't like I was surrounded by people that were suddenly like me. It was more so that, I was starting to realize who I was, and I could truly be that and truly tailor myself to my identity. And so my question to you all is, what makes you you? It could be a talent. It could be, something you're passionate about. Like, what makes you you, though? So, at this stage in your life, if you feel like you're lost and you're still figuring out what it is, if you feel like you don't fit in wherever you go, if you're nervous about whether you'll fit in wherever you go, what I'm going to tell you is you'll feel like you fit in when you figure out what your fit is. I mean, think about it. When you're wearing your favorite hoodie or wearing your favorite suit or wearing your favorite shoes, don't you feel powerful? Don't you feel special being and confident in that? It's that similar feeling. Once you slowly figure that out, you'll feel confident. And again, it's not going to come right away. I'm still figuring out like who I am in certain parts of me and where I want to go next with my life. So, I don't want to keep you too long because I know you have a bunch of things you're going to hear from everyone else. But I want to take a second to say I am proud of all of you for getting here. I realize that I haven't had even a chance to talk to you and talk about all the things you've overcome. But I know that the obstacles you overcame just to even get here. Because, I went through mine. You got to hear some of my experiences. I know each and every single one of you probably have different experiences. It could be vastly different. But I know you all overcame something to get to where you are. And so now that you've already made it this far, don't close the doors on yourself, on opportunities, on chances to continue to grow. You might say to yourself, oh, well, I'm not good enough for this, or I'm not. Let me tell you, I didn't think I'd be here. I didn't think I could speak, or I didn't think I'd be working for a company like IBM or anything when I was in high school. But I still gave myself the chance to try. And so, here's a fun fact. Butterflies can't see their own wings. So even if you don't see it, the whole world can see just how special and the value you have, but it's only if you allow it. It's only if you let yourself, it's only if you don't close the doors on yourself, get yourself out of that cocoon to learn new things. And I think part of that happened for me here at least, because if I had tried to mimic the people around me, I would have struggled. Everyone around me was so different. You heard Dr. Richardson talk about the opportunities to maybe study abroad. You think you're going to feel like you fit in when you're in a different country? Probably not. But those experiences will help mold you. You can take elements from different things. Just like I could take an element from a certain style or something and make it me. Figure out what your fit is. Whatever decision you decide to make, and you will truly feel like you fit in wherever you go. Whatever room you walk into, you will feel like you fit in because you figured out what your fit is. And so I don't know when we'll meet again, but if we do get the chance, maybe it'll be while watching a Penn State football game or eating a scoop. What am I saying? Maybe eating a couple scoops of creamy ice cream or whatever. But when we meet, I'm excited to hear about who you are and who you became, who you figured out what your identity is, because I know each of you have that in you, and it's going to be unique and it's going to be special. So don't close the doors on that. Let everyone see it. And maybe in that moment, as you're telling me who you are, you can tell me, we can all come together and say, we are Penn State. Thank you.